Startup Podcast PH is co-produced by SIMF, One CFO, Y Spaces, Credit Hero, Tiwala, Gate Genius, Cooltech Portfolio, and Red Circle Global. Check out our partners in the description.
Hello, this is the Villgro Philippines X Startup Podcast PH series. And I'm Priya, the founder and CEO at Villgro Philippines. And my friends, please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm David from inBEST Ventures. We are a impact investing firm focused on generalist investing in the Philippines.
And hi, I'm Abby. I'm one of the managing partners at ARQ SME BDC, where we provide smart capital to high-growth mid-sized enterprises in the Philippines.
All right. So maybe just a little bit of context about Villgro Philippines and, our conversation. As you both know well, Villgro Philippines is an incubator and an early stage investment firm. But we, on the incubation side, we primarily we come at the very first step. We provide grants, catalytic grants to enterprises, really to help them build their business fundamentals. And our mission is really to help these enterprises that have a direct social or climate impact grow. And a lot of the times that means, really helping them with the fundamentals of business strategy, who's your customer, what is your ambition to grow. And then comes, of course, what do you need to grow? And capital is obviously a big part of it, apart from having all of your business together. But the assumption is that typically once they go through our program, one of the things that we do is connect them to investors like you. And as a gender smart organization, for us, 86% of our portfolio are women entrepreneurs. And I guess over the many years, the kind of the theme of today is really around gender lens investing. A big gap that really kind of got me started was seeing that big metric, right? Only 2% of startups globally receive venture capital funding. That kind of made me dig into it a little bit more. And as we were getting into the gender stuff, and then I realized that, it's not just in the West or in the US, it's a global issue. And then even in Southeast Asia, there are so many women entrepreneurs. But, I think we're a little bit better. I think it's more at 11% receive financing. But then if we take that beyond venture capital into sort of SME financing, this gap still kind of remains. And that's where I sort of got introduced to gender lens investing. So maybe, Dave, we'll explain to our audience what is gender lens investing first.
Okay. With inBEST, we've been doing this since 2020. So really, it was something new at that time. Seeing it more during, more in the West, more developed countries where gender lens investing was a thing there already. And even at 2020, it was already, moving towards the norm because they weren't answering, how to do gender lens investing. It was already, how do we propagate it? But here in the Philippines in 2020, it was, what is it? Is it relevant? Is it taking away opportunities for men because now we're focusing on women? So I think those were when we were doing it in 2020, those were the questions that, we were kind of getting. And, it was hard back then to be able to generate proper answers because we didn't have the data. It's not as easy to mine the data here as it is in other countries. And so when we actually dug deep and talked to the ecosystem, we found all of these interesting numbers where, for microfinance institutions, about 60% of them are already financing women. But then when you get, to the banking sector, that number drops significantly. So what does this tell us? That tells us that there's one, a failure to graduate. And then second, even within, because a lot of universal banks, big banks or big conglomerate banks have MFI groups and they have universal banks. So even within that group, they're not able to pass on because it's different criteria, right? The criteria for MFIs are very different from what universal banks require. And so you see clients that are doing 7, 8, 9, 10 cycles successfully in MFIs, but are not able to graduate to bigger loans. So for me, gender lens investing really is just providing the same opportunities for women and accepting that their business reality is different from men. Meaning they have maybe a lot more different responsibilities that they have to do. Given the context of where we are, Catholic country, very community related ecosystem. And so it's really understanding that, or at least accepting that the norm is different and allowing that to be recognized not as, a demerit to them, but it's something that is necessary for them to do for us to exist, right? And so how do you then support that norm where they have to do business and family work and community work and, all of these other things while still, giving them equal opportunities as you would, their male counterparts or other gendered counterparts. So for us, equal opportunity is really basically what we're trying to achieve. And by focusing on women, we're kind of retilting the table back to a balance.
In today's digital world, your organization needs more than just technology. It needs a strategic partner. At Symph, we build web and mobile apps that drive innovation for startups, enterprises, and organizations worldwide. Visit symph.co today.
Still filling out loan applications for your business? Yeah, thought so. Save your time. Grow your business. With Credit Hero, one online application gets you loan offers from multiple lenders. Apply for a business loan now. Visit credithero.com.
True.
Yeah. How about
Actually,
you?
No, it's, what you guys shared is interesting. So for ARC, it's a bit different because we've been around for 10 years. So when we started it was primarily born out of the gap that we see when it comes to high growing small and medium-sized enterprises. And our goal 10 years ago was primarily to provide support beyond finance by providing that financial governance piece so that the companies can grow in a disciplined manner. So it's like disciplined capital that we want to provide to growing. But, over time, our case is a bit different because we didn't start like as a gender lens investing enterprise. It wasn't actually even part of our mandate 10 years ago. The concise story there is that in 2019 or 2018, we were invested by the Ministry of Finance in the Netherlands. So that gave us a sort of like a preview on impact reporting. So we started to actually build our disaggregated data. So we've had like good data in terms of the number of companies that we've supported that are women-owned or led, number of companies that are 2X compliant, which includes climate as one of the criteria. And then we also have actually another data where we looked at how many young entrepreneurs are we funding. Okay. And so that was like the first preview that we had on disaggregated data and, adding a specific pillar on impact within what we do. But I think over time, during those 2019 to 2022, as we continuously do this, we got exposed more into, the gender lens investing. And suddenly, like, I think as we speak to our portfolio companies, it dawned on us that, hey, a lot of these companies are actually compliant or they are practicing it, but it's more incidental.
Right.
So when we speak about gender lens or, within ourselves internally or even with our Australian government partner, we always say that at ARC, for us, gender lens or gender smart means bringing incidental to intentional. Because a lot of the companies, are perhaps maybe owned by women or they have women in their board or they actually have a lot of women in their employee pool. It's just that it's not institutionalized. So when you start to ask them about, do you track this data? Is the target in your, HR targets? Do you have all these policies that, safeguard you against, dollar risk, which is like, all these cases that might be filed on sexual harassment? They don't have it. So for me, it's really getting companies from for the companies that are already compliant from an incidental, because incidentally I'm just compliant, to an institutionalized, to an intentional gender lens practices. And then for those that are blind, we then make them aware that there is such a thing as, all these gender policies that you can adopt.
Yeah.
Because it's not really just from a compliance perspective, it's to safeguard or to actually de-risk you on some of the possible risks that may come about. So within ARQ, we actually do that across the board on our portfolio companies, especially those that we are funding through our Australian government partner.
Yeah.
So it has since been enlightening. I think it's added work, to be honest.
Yeah. It is. Yeah.
I think that's one of the, not issues, but rather there were some delays in implementation because, when the Iran conflict struck early this year, of course, I was telling our partners, right, that these companies, their primary responsibility and priority is sustainability. And sustainability for me is profitability.
Yes.
So I shouldn't be forcing them to implement all these gender rules. But then they are all receptive. It's just a matter of time, right? In terms of where they're at their business cycle.
No, that's a really important point because I think that probably if we talk to anybody and we say if someone who is not adopted a gender lens or like that usually is the first barrier, right? They're like, just seems like one more thing we have to do.
Yes.
And that requires time or money or allocating resources. And I think for us, when we started on this gender smart journey, I mean, it was first thing was to do it internally. And to write our own policies because even though we are 99% women or whatever, it doesn't mean that, maybe we are practicing things, but it's the same thing. You have to actually have the policies, train everybody in your team.
Yes.
Because one of the things that I realized is that because even I might be as, the head of the organization, super empowered and very knowledgeable about all of this, but I'm actually never the person who screens first.
Yeah, right.
I only look at a final list of people. So it was kind of going back and starting from, the junior most person actually is out there scouting for enterprises. And actually, do they know? Or if they are the ones actually scouting for our, when we have to procure something, do they have that sense of, even though it's written in our policy that, we want to prioritize women-owned businesses as our suppliers, but do they actually know that? And so then first documenting and writing all of this down. And it does take a lot of effort. And so I can imagine that if we have to extrapolate that to investors who have already a long due diligence process and then
adding
this. And sometimes I felt in the early days when all of us were talking about this, I think that definitely, I don't think there's any investor out there that will think that they have any gender bias. Everybody truly believes that they are gender blind.
Yeah.
Right? I have never
just
spoken to anyone.
Just hunting for the best opportunity.
Exactly. Always believing that they are absolutely fair in their judgment because ultimately they're looking at the business metrics. But I do feel what I've learned just for myself and then also just talking all of us as sharing is that actually we have to just look at the entire process and see who is sourcing for you, is the way, obviously investors also rely on referrals, so that's how sometimes I do feel these networks kind of perpetuate, right? Because it only comes from those networks.
Yeah.
And so I think, but then making that end-to-end very conscious decision to change always takes a lot of time and effort.
But I agree with you. I think we should practice what we preach, right? So one concrete example on our end is because we've already institutionalized our targets at our board level. So recently we've been scouting for another independent board member. And because
female,
and we needed to be female because otherwise, so I think it shows how institutionalizing the policy then actually paved the way for how you should be responding to it. So for instance, for that independent director, when we were scouting it with the Institute of Corporate Directors, we have to explicitly say that we prefer female because the first roster of people who they've advised, not mostly, all male. I had to say, I need this director to be female. And that's when they gave me another 4 people on the list.
Yeah.
So I think when you institutionalize things, that actually then, guides what actions or how you respond to it.
Yeah. I guess picking up on the conversation, I like what Avi said in terms of kind of disseminating the importance of gender, the measuring and the impact that it's doing.
Yeah.
And we've seen similar difficulties. And I think you know, because, we've invested in 29 companies thus far, we see actually that the larger the company is, the more they have capacity to comply, because
Yeah,
then it becomes, something that is intentional, but they have the bandwidth for it,
Yes.
right? Rather than, let's say, because our ticket sizes are quite varied, right? So the smaller investments that we do, like the 1 million to 4 million investments that we do, those are the ones that have really a hard time, and you really need to make a business case for them to do it, right? And if there's no business benefit, then it's not something that they would prioritize, right? And so for us, how it really made sense was if you can show that, by doing and practicing, gender lens in an organization, and if it can address certain specific problems, like, for example, turnover, right? Because there are no maternity sections or breastfeeding areas, or sometimes even bathrooms specifically for women, right? And that increases turnover, that increases cost. And if we are able to implement a policy that, addresses these things, then it can help bring the cost down. So those are like, the ones that get easily implemented because there is business sense, right? But if it's just a matter of, we need to hire more women because we need to comply to a metric, then sometimes it doesn't make sense, because especially in provincial areas, there are still a very kind of niche definition of work that is for men and work that is for women. Like, in the farm, the men are the one going out and doing all of the planting, and the women are doing all of like the harvesting and, the household work and all that stuff. For motorcycle drivers, it's mostly men that are doing it because, it's women are supposed to be in the office or whatever the case may be, right? So there's a very strict definition of women work and men work. And part of the work that we're doing is trying to at least kind of loosen the restraints on that, by providing, tools and opportunities in order to make it accessible for women to do the work that men do, right? So maybe as an example, for the portfolio companies that we have, so up in the mountains in Mountain Province, prior it was a lot of men that was doing most of the farming, and so they carry big equipment, fertilizer, etc., to go out to the fields, toil all day, etc. And so, but there's been a change in practice where men are actually moving away to doing tourist jobs, working in mines, and so the women are the ones that are left now, because they tend to the family, and plus it allows them to have spare time to take care of the children, but also to do the agriculture, the work. And so the system is not designed for them, right? They don't have the same, let's say, physical, let's say, capability as a man would, and maybe the system is designed for being able to carry heavy loads, right? Because or do heavy labor, because that's part of what agriculture needs. And so part of it is, how do we then redesign this where, we can put in investment, we can allow them to still do the work that needs to be done, but in the capacity that they have and in the time frame that they have, right? And so part of it is, okay, do we look at drip irrigation systems? Do we look at greenhouses? How do we feed fertilizer into the drip irrigation system so that they can, already feed that into the water system and not have to carry the big bag of fertilizer around? So it's really about intentionally creating solutions for women to participate in the industry that they want to work in.
Yeah, that's true. I think you're absolutely right in the sense that I think maybe just also like for our audience, when we are saying gender lens, we don't just mean like a women-owned business.
Yeah.
It's like it's not like a check, but it's really like in the value chain.
Yeah.
How does it actually impact women, right? Like what you're describing, Dave. But I do agree that because we work with a lot of early stage businesses, and a part of our baseline assessment is around gender, and then what we try to do is actually help develop like some basic milestones like this, right? Like do you have a documented policy? And I would say definitely the intention, they want to do it, but it really is like, is it a priority, or like there are actually some super existential things in the business that they have to fix first, right? Like 1 month runway only, or
the biggest fire, the biggest fire,
or something has happened like a calamity, or they really have to hire like a very key person.
Yeah.
So some of it I definitely do. It is it also is that like the stage of the business also makes sense. I've not like most of the time when we discuss with the businesses as part of our diagnostic, okay, like sometimes actually they don't know, like, okay, these are the things that we should be having, and like why, like to your point, like why should we do it? Like, why should we have this policy? Or and recently our team last year also worked with the project that Dave and I were involved together in with cacao businesses, and our job was to do gender training, and we went to Mindanao and we did actually face a lot of pushback from some of them saying, okay, this all sounds nice, but like why should we do this? Why should we have this specific policy only for women? So sometimes like it is also helping the business understand like why does this make business sense for you? Like are you able to retain people better? Or can you expand your business? Or maybe like if you have disaggregated customer data, then you know how you can target them or what channels are better. And having like those metrics or like, like the proof that this is why you should have it, I guess is what's relevant. And maybe that's what you're trying to do.
No, I feel the pain point because within ARQ, we do have that She Secure product, right? Which is meant for women-owned and led businesses. And one of our key criteria there are companies with at least 35 million in assets or 50 million in annual revenues. And even for those type of companies, they sometimes don't have time to actually implement. So when we look at gender, you're correct. We look at it in 5 facets. So it's from an ownership point of view or from a leadership point of view, which is at the board or senior management level, or from a supply chain point of view, which normally SME don't really have disaggregate data. So that's normally a 0 score for us. No one really asks whether are you a women-owned right? It's really like cost-based.
They just buy it from the supermarket.
Yeah, exactly. That's a third. So normally that's a 0 for us. And the fourth is basically, of course, it includes the policy. Then the other one is like on the employee side. So I think having those 5 facets allows us to address some of the question, right? Like you don't necessarily have to be women-owned or led. You can actually you can also be gender smart with the other practices. But I feel the pain point because even with the larger small enterprise that we work on, it's an issue for some of them.
The larger
like,
small
enterprise. The larger small enterprise, right? So I would understand the pain point of like them asking, why should we do this? So I felt like the way we're trying to do it is that number one, we try to incentivize them. So I think we have that 2% per annum rebate on agreed gender milestones. So we paid that out. It's quite substantial actually because we do it on a declining balance base. So imagine it's like 2% on the average principal balance that's been with us. We also do it. I think it's also good to have that sort of pot of capital to incentivize them. So we have like a technical assistance provided to companies if they meet like a criteria, the 2X criteria. So I think that's been helpful for us in terms of just I won't say compel, but rather encouraging to comply. And what we also did, which I find interesting, is that so what ARQ did is that we built the policies for them to easily implement. So it's like we give them policies, then there's a training of these are the placeholders. You have to think how do you then customize it to your company or industry. Then you just adopt it. At least I think the baseline, what we always say is that the baseline is it's institutionalized.
Absolutely.
Maybe the next is then cascade it to your team. And then the team
implementation.
Once you cascade it to a team, sometimes you have this accountability already with the organization, right? That you're holding yourself accountable to these policies. So I think that helps.
I think definitely. I think we've also been helping kind of people draft their employee handbooks and like creating some of these clauses because sometimes it's really just the mind space and time to create it. Okay, so maybe like just kind of shifting gears from, like what are these gender metrics to like what do we like, you've both been like looking at a lot of deals in the last few years and especially now with She Secure. So what would we say are like some barriers to, many of these women-led businesses or women entrepreneurs, accessing financing or unlocking? Some of it I'm sure is similar to any business, but maybe if there are some other unique challenges also that you've seen.
Maybe for inBEST. So depending on the product, right? So because we do short-term investments, we do long-term investments. Short-term meaning anything shorter than 2 years. So I guess short, medium term. And then long-term for us is anywhere from 3 to 7 years. And so really it depends on the business. But most of the applications that we get, we typically run it through like a graduation kind of ladder. So we usually start smaller, and then if it's a good business, and then we can invest larger amounts, right? And so some of the challenges, especially as we're addressing, I guess if Abby's doing the larger small, we're doing the smaller small, but not micro, but smaller small, medium small. And so I guess some of the problems there is really like a lot of the entrepreneurs that we meet are entrepreneurs, right? They know their business in and out. They've been doing it maybe 5, 7, 10 years already. But the financial discipline is not there, right? It's all mixed up. Like, it could be a sole proprietor that, does everything in one bank account, that, mixes the personal life with the business life. And so when you talk about numbers, they're surprised because they know money's coming in, but there's a lot of money coming out, and there's nothing left at the end of the day, right? And so, but when we ask, how is the business doing? That's their metric, right? It's cash in, cash out. So then how do we really kind of understand the worth of the business as a standalone if everything is getting mixed up? So it's for us, the challenges are, kind of understanding the business. So it goes beyond, them submitting their financials, because we all know that's not like the right or correct picture, right? So it's really sitting down and having them explain the business, going through transactions, them going through examples of, if I do this service, this is, the cost of it, and this is how much we're getting out of it, and calculating those figures with them, right? Not for them. And then second, it's kind of like the structure of the business, right? Because a lot of these organizations are very loose, right? You have, maybe one person that's really into the business, and then you have, maybe the husband's helping, maybe the auntie is helping, maybe the sister is helping, but not really in a full-time capacity, not really in a, structured organizational chart. It's like, as the fire comes, people come in and put it out, right? And then leave when there's no fire, right? And so, really institutionalizing, part of who is committed to the business. And then third, that I've seen is, people don't really pay themselves, right? It's kind of, if there's something at the end of the day, then we take it. And if there's none, then we figure it out. So that's a challenge for us, because we know that if an entrepreneur's, basic needs are not getting met, then how do you bet on a business that has the same runway as the people that are running it, right? And so those are the three things that we try to address whenever we invest, is that, the financial discipline should be there, or we help build that financial discipline together with them. We know who is in the organizational structure, so we know who we're working with and what resources that we have. And then third, that everyone gets paid, right? Doesn't matter if it's big or small, but everyone gets something, so that we know that, they're also committed to the business, because that's, their main source of livelihood. So those are things that are typically not present a lot when we talk to potential investees, just because, they are the smaller, the medium small. And that's part of what we try to institutionalize. And, we already spent most of it, or if not all of it. We had a technical assistance before, where part of it was, to address all of these issues. And what we did when we designed it was that we allowed the entrepreneurs to co-design with us, rather than dictate, okay, this is only what you can use it for. We allowed them to co-design with us, so that it addresses their biggest need as they've identified it. So maybe it's as simple as, okay, like, I need more time to be able to focus on this. Okay, so maybe is it hiring an EA, or maybe getting a nanny, or paying for daycare, right? So it was that flexible that it allowed it to address whatever the need is of the business entrepreneur that's running it, in order to run the business. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Trust the digital future with Twala. Secure and tamper-proof digital signature. Electronic notarization service. And custom AI agents for intelligent document workflows. Visit twala.io to learn more.
Meet Lala, a freelancer who chose Gig Genius. Unlike many platforms that make freelancers pay just to apply, Gig Genius was built to put skills first, not spending. No pay-to-apply barriers, no bidding fees, just safer opportunities through dual system verification. Ready to experience the difference? Visit giggenius.io and join Gig Genius today.
But don't worry, Dave. I think the larger small also has the same issue. They have the same issue, like the whole reliable financials. That's I think a persistent issue. But I think the other thing that we come across, not only for larger small, but also for the high growing mid-sized enterprises, that the mindset. I think more often than not, the women owners or the leaders, I think there is that mindset of I'll wait for the next organic cash flow or my profits to undertake the growth. So, which is nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong there. But it's just that you might not necessarily, because we know for a fact that opportunities are not always there. So sometimes it's just a window for you to be that first mover or to actually undertake those. So I think I felt like having that mindset, but I think that mindset of utilizing external capital to undertake the growth in front of you will only make any entrepreneur comfortable if you have a clear visibility on your forecast. So then it goes back to, if you don't have reliable financials, like how the hell do you set your forecast? But I think it's also the mindset. Like,
definitely,
the female owners, like leaders, wouldn't probably. I think loan or external funding is not top of mind.
This is what our research from a few years ago showed as well. And this is honestly like the number of people that I have, my conversation is not about like, how do you get the money or like, is really convincing them that actually you may not be able to grow unless you take external financing. There's definitely, I don't know if it's a cultural thing or like what it is, but definitely this is absolutely on point that we do see this a lot. That's why like our research also showed that a lot of women entrepreneurs are just like using their credit cards or prefer borrowing from people that they know informally. Rather than kind of, take that forward into formal financing.
But I think that's also one of my thesis. That's why I think the Philippines is blessed because we do have good women equality. So I think from micro enterprises, like 51% is actually owned by female. But that's one of our questions. Like so if you look at the 3 to 15 million asset, I think we still have like majority female entrepreneurs. These are basically those that have market stalls probably or do online shops. Suddenly, when they size up to 100 million in assets, suddenly that ownership, this is an ADB study, drops to 18%. So then our question at ARQ is that why? Why couldn't they move past that 15 million barrier? Like there must be something fundamental because it's such a sharp drop.
It is a huge drop.
So I felt like maybe mindset is one of it. I mean, they'd rather stay in the status quo, like be comfortable in their comfort zone.
I think organic growth is what I see, at least from the super early stage. Like they definitely put off external financing until they feel like they are confident enough about their number. They're more stable.
It's not strategic.
It's not that like,
used to solve solutions rather than
exactly. So I feel like and I think there will always be a percentage of businesses that's what makes sense for them. But I do feel like there is this soft spot of a number of businesses that we see at the early stage that really have the potential, but like they are preferring to kind of go the organic growth route. Maybe it's a multiple reasons. Like one is that they've heard all like these terrible stories about like people taking money and like things not working out, or like investors trying to take over their business, or I don't know what not. Like there are a lot of bad stories floating, I think, in the Philippine ecosystem. But also the other is that I think the confidence to take that risk is also something that, maybe like the ecosystem or plus culture, plus all of this is not giving. Because I do know that from our experience that a lot of people would prefer to kind of just not prefer, or they're rather choosing maybe reluctantly to pursue the organic growth, which in some cases okay because it suits your lifestyle or like, whatever life challenges you might have. But in many cases, like, I was just looking back at like, close to 200 businesses a year, and I would have to say that many are quite stagnant where they are. And I would say that is a broader Philippine story that we are seeing in the small businesses. And a big part is that they are very undercapitalized and not pursuing growth.
But I think it's also a function maybe because the horror stories are coming from who their partners are. So I think it's also important to choose the right partner. Because the right partner would be not only providing the capital, but really being your accountability partner that helps you scale. I think if you have the wrong partner, yes, I agree. There are a lot of horror stories.
Yeah.
Correct,
Suddenly,
correct.
their interest is suddenly like humongous.
People calling their friends and family.
So I think it's also choosing being wise on who you partner with, right?
Right.
Because it's not just a one-time transaction. Imagine if you're going to scale multiples, like you need that partner over a 3 to 5 year horizon. Right?
Yeah.
So I think I think that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think choosing your investor is like as important as choosing like your life partner or whatever it is,
I think
right?
so.
Like, because
So
they are
make
with
or
you,
break.
make or break.
Yeah.
So I think, and a lot of the times that I do find that people are going to fundraise when they should have had the money last month.
Yeah.
And that goes back to
Well,
your
that's
focus.
always the
That's the
answer.
mindset.
No,
right?
that's always the answer. Whenever we
Yeah.
ask entrepreneurs, like, when do you need this? They'll be like, oh, I
Yesterday.
need it yesterday.
Yeah.
And that's also going back to your forecasting
Yeah.
and like the financial planning,
Yeah.
because they actually, like, it does take, it's not like all money is not instant.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of have your financial project or like have a good sense of your numbers.
But that's why I always
planning.
encourage, like any of the forums that I'm in, I always encourage each of the entrepreneur to just, have that conversation with the capital partners, because you never know when you need it.
Yeah.
So that's why your answer is always, I need it yesterday, because
Yeah.
that means you didn't actually approach them early on.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think approaching it early on, maybe you won't need it today or this month, but at least when at the time you need it, that particular capital partner would have kind of like a preview of what you're doing,
Yeah.
kind of have already tracked you for a couple of months. And I think that proven successful for some of the companies that we've backed. So maybe one example on this gender climate nexus, because I always have this question, like, what is this gender climate nexus?
Yes.
It's such a buzzword. Even my partner was like, what is
I learned
this
Nexus last
What
year.
does it even mean, like nexus, right? So
Yeah.
and then I actually read on it because I was like, how is this applicable? Like, do I always have to hit gender with? I mean, is this the meaning? I guess the meaning, there's like
Intersectionality.
yeah. I think the meaning is that because a lot of the women or on developing countries are more vulnerable or in rural areas, and that's why all these products, especially on climate side, would actually serve to help them. So one example of our portfolio company is that we have a portfolio company that is women-led, and their product is actually in sachet LPG. So the name is Gaslight. So what they do is, do you know those Korean grilling restaurants?
Yeah.
Samgyeopsals,
Yeah.
where you use butane. So they actually use the same canister, but it's LPG. So what it means is that it's refillable. Because butane, you throw it, right?
You throw it
in the
away,
trash.
yeah.
But with LPG, it's actually refillable. And for any of the, for all the households across the Philippines, a big majority still use uling, so charcoal.
charcoal.
Yeah.
And that's actually not good for the climate. So
Yeah.
what the product does is that it allows any of the, moms or women in the household to actually reduce the time to like make fire or prepare their food with LPG. And on top of that, of course, it's refillable. And I think that's probably one example of the intersection.
Beautiful intersection of gender and climate.
Yeah, because some of the examples I have is some of the examples I read is like, women in rural areas, which is true. I'm not going to discount it. Like, their lives are more affected if there's a flood and
Or
I'm like,
typhoon, yeah.
But then I'm like, but then what can we fund that will help their lives during a flood? Like,
And if there's a flood, the city also floods. In the Philippines, right?
everyone gets
everyone
affected.
gets
It's the
affected.
Philippines.
If there's a tsunami, right?
So there is multiple ways we can look at gender climate
Yes.
nexus.
Yeah.
Not
that
only.
intersectionality.
Intersectionality. Like for us, I think for that intersectionality, it's a bit more of a literal interpretation. Like
Yeah.
women in
Climate.
climate,
But
right?
we have that as well.
Yeah. So for us, it's it's the organic farmers that we support in Mountain Province. The dairy plant that we invested in Mindanao.
Yeah.
So they're really affected by how climate changes, because it increases the number of diseases for the cows, for example, if you have fluctuating weather or if it's too hot. The productivity also declines in agriculture if your weather is unpredictable. But it's also part and parcel of not having the right equipment, right? Is it a greenhouse? Is it irrigation? Is it proper planning for what to farm during what season, right? And so I think the intersectionality is something that's been a bit of a niche word that everyone has their own interpretation. But for us, the bottom line is it helps alleviate, the issues and problems caused by nature
Climate.
for women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, also gender is also cross-cutting across a lot of themes, right?
All
I think-
genders?
All genders, yeah. I think, and also like right now, most of the conversation is only about women. That's maybe like another podcast.
We've been asked about that. Like, can other gender actually be part of She's Secure? But I think the answer we got is that it's by design.
Women focused.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of the conversation definitely is because like that is, I guess, the biggest kind of inequality that people do is more visible.
And that's the data that we have.
Yeah, and the data that we have. But, for us, for example, like our inclusion statement includes other genders as well. But even for our work with entrepreneurs, we are primarily focusing on women-led, women-owned or women benefiting businesses. But the intersectionality with climate, I think we also follow a similar definition, though we have kind of also seen like, is there an intersection also with health? And then it starts becoming more complicated. But I think the reality is that where we are in the Philippines, and not only extreme weather, but all the other things, the circularity issues, the plastic waste. So I think there is a lot of direct implication on, climate and gender. And I think for us, like having these lenses of gender and climate has not like stopped us from finding entrepreneurs. It has not made anything more difficult. Last year, we've, directly funded and supported about 100 climate entrepreneurs. 80-90% of them are women-owned businesses. So I feel like it's not a very hard lens to apply, though sometimes it's hard to explain, like what is the metric that we'll measure to demonstrate this. And I think, coming back to like what you were saying earlier. So one is that, of course, like you have to find the right investors. The other is really pursue your own, like, have your financials and have some sense of what you're forecasting and what we need.
Yeah.
And we do see that as a continuous gap. In fact, like we've changed our programs, on the capacity building incubation side to have this investment readiness piece. And, we hire an accounting firm to work with the company. But a lot of the time, like after we make the first intro, like everybody ghosts us.
Yeah, they wouldn't be, right? Exactly.
Yeah, and I think it's only because they're just feeling very bad that they don't have the documents. So I think like my one thing would be like, like to take advantage of all these opportunities. Even a lot of investors, like I'm sure like, we've sent people to you, Dave, and Abby, to your team. And like people are actually giving good feedback and ready to work with you. But sometimes people are a bit embarrassed that they don't have these documents. Or in many genuine cases, they've of course like hired like the cheapest accountant available and that only accountant has the documents. They can't reach the accountant.
Yeah.
These kind of things.
Yeah.
I think which you don't really focus on until you really need the money. And I think that's where maybe a lot of the times people fall off. That okay, you're interested and there are investors, but then in between there's this chasm. Like where, you really can't.
No, so that's why I'm excited with what we're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to do, so Villgro and ARQ. Of course, inBEST is, feel free to join.
You are a partner, you don't know it yet.
We're trying to do like a 3-part free workshop for any women-owned and led enterprises to just walk them through the mindset. Like, how do you actually scale up your company? And then understanding why finance really would help you in your decision making. Like, it's not really a compliance work. It's not extra work. It's really for you at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then trying to get them to understand what are the capital sources available, whether it be from Villgro or inBEST.
Yeah.
Because I think I was thinking at that our target market, it's like a progression, right?
Correct.
We normally would do incubator,
Priya to
then
us,
the small,
to you.
and the
Yeah,
small for
absolutely.
She's Secure. So I felt like that workshop, which we're trying to do towards end of the year and next year, early next year, is something that it's free.
Yeah.
So hopefully that helps enlighten them.
Yeah.
Gives them, more understanding of how they can grow their business. Because you spend so much time. I mean, even I myself, I'm an entrepreneur, right? I spend most of my time in the business.
Right.
So just like anything that you're nurturing, you want it to grow as well to actually reach its full potential. So I think that's the, of course, concept that we wanted to cascade.
Yeah. But it's not just work, right? It's also arming yourself with enough information to know what to do rather than just doing a lot of hard work without direction.
Yes, and hopefully out of that they can, like each entrepreneur, even we ourselves, I mean, even us, it's an ecosystem, right? You cannot do it on your own. So I hope after that series, or even now as they, watch this podcast, they get to realize that capital normally gets you in the door, like whether it be like a 1 million, 5 million. The first is maybe easy, or maybe you feel like you've already succeeded on your first. But how you actually, do the marathon or that long haul relationship is really through accountability and partnership. And I think that gets them to scale. That brings them to that scale.
Yeah. And maybe just to add to that, I think a lot of entrepreneurs misconstrue that the relationship starts with investors the moment they give you the investment, and then it stops again. And then when you get back to them for more investments, you restart the relationship. I think it happens the first time you meet. So the earlier that you meet, the more that because maybe the investor is not yet ready, but they can be ready for you when you are ready, right? And maybe they can give you advice or they can give you guidance. And, investors are looking for investments.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs are looking for investments, right? And so we need each other to be able to do the function that we have. And so, and actually, I think entrepreneurs can exist without investors, but investors cannot exist without entrepreneurs, right? And so
that's very
so that power dynamic of who needs who actually shifts when you think about it that way. And so I think building that relationship as early as you can, getting inputs as early as you can, also changes your mindset about what's possible, right? Because you will always be constrained about what I have right now and what's coming in next month versus, okay, if I had, 10 million pesos, like how can I properly allocate this to grow my business and what opportunities can I get in order to grow it? And amongst these opportunities that are there, which one will give me the highest yield, right? You need to be able to crunch those numbers to be able to answer those questions.
Yeah.
And your investors, if you work with them and they help you, kind of figure that out, then maybe it becomes a more interesting proposition for them because now they see the business through your lens, right? The gender lens, sorry. Through your lens.
Yeah.
And so then it is a relationship. And even after deploying the capital, I think it doesn't become, you go back to your piggy hole and I go back to my cubby hole and then we talk about something when we have problems, right? I think it should be ongoing updating and discussions because when you have problems, we will also be the first one that you will turn to and say, oh, maybe I can't pay or maybe we need to do this or we need to pivot or we need to,
or we need more.
Or we need more, right? Or maybe we need different kinds of capital now because we're maxed out on our debt. We need equity, how do we do this? And so we also we will also become your biggest advocate in doing that because we, we're in the ecosystem. This is what we do. We know people that are in the industry. And so help us problem solve with you because our money and our time and our commitment is already with you. Leverage it.
Education is evolving, and so are we. Introducing School Tech by Edfolio, your all-in-one school management solution. Built for schools of all sizes, School Tech bridges the gap between school and learning management. Driven by passion, School Tech makes educational technology accessible, affordable, and easy to use for schools everywhere. With an integrated approach, School Tech simplifies management across different departments and enhances efficiency in operations. School Tech transforms the way schools manage, teach, and learn. School Tech, taking school management solutions to the next level.
Running a business? Make it smarter with Red Circle Global. Streamline operations, boost productivity, and manage everything in one powerful ERP system. Book your free business demo today at redcircleglobal.com, guided by one of our top experts.
Correct. I think that's an important point about power dynamics. And sometimes I think there's a lot of things that pit investors and entrepreneurs on opposite sides.
Right.
Which is really not a very good framing for any ecosystem. Because we, and as you said, investors need the deals. Most of us are very actively looking. And I think sometimes when the no's happen, and there is maybe also lack of understanding of why it's not a fit.
Yeah.
And maybe it's on us investors to explain more of why we're saying no. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we're not doing a good enough job.
Yet.
I'm not sure. Or not yet.
Yeah.
And then also from the entrepreneurs, not to take that personally. I think it's better that there is a no and you're a bad fit.
Yeah.
Rather than get the money and things really you're not on the same page. And sometimes that understanding maybe because we're also a very young ecosystem.
Right.
I think is not there in the market. And I think all of us as stakeholders, I think we also have to play those roles. And that's one of the reasons why we do a lot of reverse pitches and both of you come to all our events. And because we're trying to just make it that, investors are also just normal people like you. Everyone is trying to run a business at the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah.
Just different types of businesses. And I think that power dynamics, unfortunately, really comes into it. And then, that level of transparency that's needed to actually share, because, they're not seeing the investor as a real partner, like what you were saying. And I think that's a lot of the time also where these misunderstandings, and then people are upset why, like, it didn't happen.
But I think if someone applies at ARC, I think you're correct. I think it's our role as investors to actually give the proper feedback.
Yes.
In fact, what we're trying to do at ARC is that apart from the feedback on, is it, like we normally provide feedback, when can we revisit? Or is it something worth revisiting? And if it's not really too far from our criteria, then we pass it on to one of our partners. Like we pass it on to you guys.
Yeah.
I think that's how, because they also spend time in sharing information about their firm.
Yes, I think, that's where a lot of sometimes frustration happens, because they've spent a lot of time.
But I agree with Dave in the context of it's really a partnership. It's not like once you get the funding, you essentially just leave the investor. Because, for example, one of our She Secure investee, she's a women-owned and led company that focuses on wastewater treatment facility, EPC, O&M, and contractor services. When she actually joined us, like their revenues is at about 100 million. And we were able to provide like a 10 million facility. And because we worked alongside them in terms of their monthly financial governance, like having a deck ready in terms of having a review on what has happened versus budget, that particular exercise, including a forecast, allows us to have a very clear view of what's happening. And because of that, we're able to actually increase our facility with them to 20 million. And over time, we've deployed over 60 to 70 million already to them.
Wow.
And anytime they come to us, even just with 1 week notice, like, hey, ARC, my receivable, my collection got delayed for 2 weeks. I need this because I need to pay for, the importation of the equipment. That allows us to also easily release.
Yeah, right.
Because because their financials are so clear to us. It's as if we're looking at it together.
Right.
So I think that's how a partnership can actually scale. And because of that, they were able to grow their sales by 129%.
Wow.
So they're able to reach 200 million in just a year and a half.
Yeah.
So that's an example of how, and I clearly remember asking her, like, I was like, why is your target only 120 million pesos? Why couldn't you do 200? Because you've already been doing this for the past 10 years.
Yeah, right.
And she took that as a challenge. That's why I said it's a matter of mindset.
Right.
It's also by us saying that we're here if you need that expansion capital. And so I think she undertook that challenge, and that allowed her to actually just, level up the business. And then we're happy for those. I mean, from leasing their office, they now actually own.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So I think that's the fulfillment that we get for, an entrepreneur that is progressive, not only in the way they grow their business, but also within their internal practices. I think you need that.
And the transparency.
And we're able to actually get them to institute the policies because we provide them a rebate.
Yeah.
So I think last year, the rebate is as high as 170,000. And that's cash.
That's significant. Yeah.
That's
very
cash.
significant. Yeah.
That's those success stories make all this worthwhile.
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe just to kind of round up, I think one of the things that we've also done as investors in Gender Lens is also set up a Gender Lens and Impact Investment Council, because we're also learning how to do these type of investments. I think what I like, both of you actually mentioned very interesting, what I touted is very innovative type of financer. You said you're making it super flexible, co-designing with them. You spoke about the rebates that you're providing if they meet the gender milestones. And all of this is really, these are not usual practices, but I think the fact that, you've adopted that, and this is here in the Philippines, I think so there is support available. I think maybe sometimes it feels like investors are mysterious creatures far away, but it is available. But I think it is about finding each other. And so that's one of the reasons we've also come together and, created sort of a network for ourselves as investors, so we can also learn from each other and, do this. So please look up, who are the members of the council. And I think the main takeaway, maybe we can have some closing thoughts as we wrap up. So if we were to say one piece of advice to our entrepreneurs, especially our women entrepreneurs who think, okay, maybe accessing finance is challenging.
Okay.
Go, Dave, lead us.
Abby's ready. I think if what we share is something that resonates with you and you really are undergoing growth, come speak with us, because as I shared a while ago, you don't necessarily need it now, but happy to actually just get acquainted with them, understand what they're doing. And, who knows, in the near future, in a few months or in a year's time, we're able to actually support them.
Yeah.
Or even next week.
Yeah. And even if you talk to one of us, it can still be referred to any of us.
Yes, I'll pass it on to David.
We're an ecosystem.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe for me, one key takeaway that I'd like to share, especially for our entrepreneurs that are watching, especially the women entrepreneur, I think I see a lot of panic-driven confidence. When they start sourcing capital is when they're already panicking about, the bills I need to pay, delays in my collections, et cetera, et cetera. And, let's shift that into kind of confidence, strategy-driven confidence, because the money that you need and when you need it and how much you need, because it will support how much you can grow. Then that's when you start talking to investors. So we are not Band-Aid solutions that, help you survive your business. We're here to catalyze the growth of your business exponentially. And that's the role that we play. And so the earlier we start our conversation, the more we can embed kind of that mindset into your plans, whatever the business may be.
So,
And Priya?
yeah, I think, honestly, entrepreneurship is like a very lonely journey. And then you kind of feel like you're under
At least we
constant pressure.
all have each other.
We have each other. And I mean, maybe like
We're
all
all in this.
entrepreneurs. That's what I want to say to all of our entrepreneurs. I feel like you kind of feel like, you're very alone and like no one will understand this, or like it's a very unique challenge. And it feels like you don't know any investor or you don't know. But we really do, refer to each other. Like, as I was saying earlier, Dave and Abby and like their teams are always attending our events, even though, it may not always be a big, close, immediate fit, but they're having these conversations so they can keep an eye on you and they can invest in you later on when, when the timing or the fit is right. So I would say that like there is a community out there. I think sometimes you might feel you're outside of it, but do reach out. And the good news, I think, for the entrepreneurs is that today I would say, like from my experience as being a connector between investors and entrepreneurs, it's not like we have so many deals that we are sending to Abby and Dave. We are actually constantly looking.
Always.
So if you're an entrepreneur somewhere, you need money, you should reach out to us. And even if we may not be able to give you the financing right now, I'm sure as you continue to grow, we can direct you to other people, other resources. So don't feel so alone. We're all in this with you.
And watch out for our free workshop.
Yes, more details soon.
2027.
Thank you so much, guys.
I think that's it.
Thank you very much to our 68 patrons. This episode is super powered by Multibook Philippines, provider of cloud ERP and outsourced business services. Ask Lex PH Academy, our official e-learning partner. Get certifications on Lean Six Sigma, project management, data science, and more. Pahatid PH, B2B logistics solutions provider specializing in third-party logistics, micro warehousing, and micro-fulfillment services. Digital Workforce Group, connecting Filipino professionals with global opportunities and helping businesses scale through recruitment, remote staffing, executive search, and more. Nascent Batteries, energy technology startup specializing in sodium-ion battery technology as a safer, more sustainable alternative to conventional batteries. Level Up Talent Solutions, delivering lean pro talents, highly trained, AI-ready, business-savvy professionals who plug into your operations and power your growth. Agile Data Solutions, the Philippines' fastest-growing market insights tech company with its data gathering platform Hustle PH. Cloud CFO, expert accounting, tax, and payroll services for SMEs and startups, using smart technology to deliver actionable financial insights. Architect Space Solutions, provider of ground station services, space data analytics, and technology supplies to grow the Philippines' role in the global space ecosystem. DV Code Technologies Incorporated, IT solutions specializing in software development, blockchain smart contracts, digital wallets, and cybersecurity. Argun AI, make smarter decisions by presenting both sides of an issue as argued by two distinct AI models. Pixel by ePlayman, turn content into opportunity, grow deeper connections, and earn more. Only with Pixel. Sign up at pixel.eplayman.co. School of Profits, Filipino-led community for aspiring freelancers, VAs, agency builders, and online earners built to help you start, Grow and earn online together. Hire Business Solutions, provider of the most configurable cloud-based payroll system in the Philippines. Smell Checks, streamline hiring and onboarding with automated background checks. This episode is powered by Nature Loop, Worldwide Shipping and Logistics and Stars 3 AI, Sirius MD, Airship Logistics, Pareto Consulting, Josie AI, Uplift Code Camp, Board Prep, Hanson Barley, East Point Business Outsourcing Services, Filipina Home-Based Moms, Alacon, Aquafeeds, One Algae, Grey Wolf Technologies, and Sugbodoc. Support the podcast through the links in the description.